When you're young, you will make some mistakes. The more mistakes you make and the faster you make them, the more you pay off your ignorance tax. And what I've learned over the course of doing business for these past few years is that I'm following up in a nagging way. I'm not following up with value. So that was one of my huge early mistakes, was being a little bit too aggressive from a sales perspective and not leading with value first, but almost looking like I was begging for business, because let's face it, I was.
Welcome to the Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast, the #1 source for proven solutions to all your marketing challenges.
Folks, today on the Marketing Boost Solutions Podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome a true expert in the art of trust building through storytelling, Jon Goehring. Did I pronounce your last name right?
That's right. Yes.
All right.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Jon is the founder of StoryTrust Media, where he helps brands and creators build real human connections through the power of audio storytelling. He's the kind of guy who knows how to turn a microphone into a trust engine, helping companies and entrepreneurs launch podcasts and audiobooks that don't just make noise, they build relationships. With a master's from Syracuse University, legendary Newhouse School of Communications, and a background that spans from broadcast journalism, radio hosting, and voiceover narration, Jon has spent his career helping people find their voice, literally and strategically. Today, we'll dive deep into how storytelling builds credibility faster than any ad campaign, how podcasting can become your most powerful trust-building content machine, and why shifting through scarcity mindset to a collaborative one can completely transform your business and your life. So buckle up, because this one's about how to speak your truth, share your story, and build a brand people actually believe in. Jon, welcome to the show.
Marco, thanks so much for having me on, and I'm going to get a little bit distracted with the beautiful locations in your background, but we'll try to stay on topic here. But I love what you do with Marketing Boost, and it's an honor to get a chance to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, folks, if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble, you'll see my background continue to change. We offer, of course, if you're not a Marketing Boost member, we offer complimentary hotel stays in over 180 destinations, and you'll see some of them throughout the show. So, Jon, let's get started into this, the power of storytelling. You've built your business around storytelling. Why do you believe stories are the ultimate trust-building tool in marketing today?
Stories build trust. Stories create authenticity and relatability that you can't get through case studies or through just plain statistics or through more and more regurgitated information. And that's what I feel like, Marco, we have a lot of in our world right now, is a lot of regurgitated information. What is one thing that we do when we want to start a podcast or start creating a blog or just start posting on social media? We go to ChatGPT and we say, hey, write me a blog post, write me a social media post. The problem is all of that is regurgitated information. Instead of regurgitating other people's information that exists on the internet somewhere, and that ChatGPT does a great job of compiling into something that's ready for you to use, why not tell your own stories? Something that no AI or internet-based tool can do, because they're your lived experiences. So that's why I believe storytelling builds trust, because it's something that hasn't been told before, but it's relatable to all of us.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're right. You know, if you're like most of us today, you're certainly using artificial intelligence to enhance whatever your email scripts are, to enhance your copy on your landing pages. But you know, AI only knows what it knows based on what everybody else has fed it. So you're right. You're getting other ideas that may or may not have worked, but you're hoping that they do, and they lose authenticity real quick, because people can begin to recognize, especially when you see people copy paste, you know, like the entire thing, including all the little, you know, the emojis and the bullet points and everything.
Yeah, pretty obvious, right? Or
Yeah,
the
it's
worst is you see a post that says, here's what I have for you, right? And then you even copy and paste that part. It's like, at least go through the effort of reading through it.
That's true. I've seen that before too. They literally just copy paste through the whole damn thing. So what are the biggest, well, we probably just covered some of them, but what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes you see business owners making when they do try to tell their own story?
Oh man, well, we did cover one big one, and don't get me wrong, I am all for AI. I believe AI can make our lives easier in so many different ways, and I use it in many ways. But as far as using something that's already been told as a story for your brand, regurgitating, like I said, that's a huge mistake. Another big mistake that I see, maybe the most costly mistake, is making the stories that we tell about ourselves instead of about our audience. Now, obviously, the stories that we tell may feature us as the main character, or may have lessons from our lives. But if our audience can't take anything away from it, then what's the point, right? I like to tell the story of how I transitioned my mindset as a business owner from a scarcity, fixed mindset to an abundance mindset, where I went from competition to collaboration. And I tell a story of when I was talking with a mentor of mine, and I was trying as a voiceover artist, and I was trying to be everything to everyone. And I was getting auditions coming to my inbox like, hey, we need a 55-year-old woman. And instead of contacting 55-year-old women that I knew, I thought, well, let me just try to be a 55-year-old woman. I'm going to try this. I'm trying to be everything to everyone. I can do this recording for you. And finally, my mentor kind of told me straight up, Jon, you're being too hyper competitive with other people, and you're not, rising tides lift all ships, right? Like we need to focus more on collaborating with each other as business owners. And I tell that story, but when I tell that story, I need to remember that it's not just all about me, it's about my audience. I need to relate it back to my audience, who might need to hear that reminder that business is not always a race to the top. Sometimes it's a collaborative venture. And I know you do a lot of great work with Marketing Boost, that does help businesses collaborate with one another. And that's such a huge piece of it. So again, make your stories not about yourself, but about your audience. Remember, position yourself not as the hero, but as the guide, as Donald Miller says in his story brand framework. I think that's so powerful.
Jon, that's powerful. And thanks for mentioning Marketing Boost. We'll be right back. I got a ton of questions for Jon on how to make your story powerful. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
It's time to wow, surprise, and impress your clients with the most powerful customer draw card available anywhere. The Marketing Boost Solutions Show is brought to you by Marketing Boost, where you can get valuable travel and restaurant incentives to drive your leads from prospects to paying customers. Now you can offer complimentary hotel stays in over 130 destinations worldwide. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com and try it for free right now.
You just heard from Marketing Boost. Folks, if you haven't checked out marketing, if you're in business for yourself looking for ways to wow, surprise, and delight your clients, then you got to check out marketingboost.com. We make it incredibly affordable for you to wow your clients with amazing rewards, perks, and incentives, such as complimentary hotel stays from 3 to 7 late stays in over 180 destinations around the world. Of course, they don't include airfare, food and beverage, or government taxes and fees. So you can either handle that, some of that, or you can pass that on to your client with proper disclosures. Check out marketingboost.com. In addition to that, we've got other incentives that make it amazing for you to generate more leads and close more sales. We're back here live with Jon. Jon, how can a company find and refine a story? I mean, it makes sense when you're a small business owner and you're trying to tell your story. But if you are, I'm kind of curious on both ends of the stick, a larger company, and obviously, with the majority of the Marketing Boost members are small companies with, less than 10 employees or what have you. So then their story is probably even more necessary. But just for the sake of argument, how does a larger company tell their story where it resonates?
Larger companies, you can't be all about resumes. You got to be about results. Right? Results beat resumes every time. So what are the stories of transformation that your clients have gone through? Always think transformation. Now why? Because that's relatable. Now you could give all of, oh, we work with this many clients, or we've done this many things. Nobody cares about what you've done. Don't tell your story. Is your credibility important? Yes, but your credibility comes through your clients' successes. So instead, it's my client went from here to here. My client 10x their sales. Now, by extension, that does give you credibility because you're positioned as the guide in that relationship, not the hero. But I think for your audience, when you're just talking about yourself as a big brand, like, oh, look at us, we've like these odd flexes, like we've worked with dozens of Fortune 500 companies, or we've done this or that, or look at our office space here in on the beach or whatever. That's all about you, and the more successful storytellers are the ones who don't make it all about themselves. Yes, they are a character involved, but they're positioned as the guide. Look at the client's success. That's the key. And from a storytelling framework, it's so important to do that because those people who might want to work with you, they don't care about your success. They care about their success. And if they can see themselves in the position that your client is in, now all of a sudden they put two and two together mentally and see that you are the common denominator there, but you don't have to tell that in the story. So again, focus on your client's results rather than your resume.
That's it's powerful. It's deep, and yet, it's you kind of want to brag. You see the influencers in today's market running around and, look at me, look at me. And what is their story, if any?
Right.
So, yeah, I guess uh so can you share a powerful example of a client or a brand that transformed their business by starting to tell a better story?
It's a great question. I do have a client who he actually does a lot in the sales coaching world. So he's all about implementing different frameworks to sell more effectively. And his big thing is about turning the quantity, because we're all focused on reaching so many leads and having thousands and thousands of people that we reach out to, into the quality. And before working together, he was doing well for himself, right? But he struggled a bit in the world of storytelling because he was really hyper focused on the concepts. And he would, he did have a podcast and did do some webinars, but what he spoke about was all about the different concepts and psychological things that happen when we choose quality over quantity in our sales efforts, right? And there was some really good stuff in there. And I didn't want to change what he was doing too much, but we needed to wrap some of those concepts and some of those statistics into stories. And that's what we did when we decided to take some case studies of people that he worked with who were sending out mass marketing blasts, throwing spaghetti in a wall and seeing what sticked at thousands of people, and then talking about the transformation they went through when working with him, where they reached out to fewer people, but they actually closed more deals. And so the ratio went way up despite the quantity going down. So the quality and quantity conversation. So I think that was one of the big successes that we've had at StoryTrust Media was helping this individual and this personal brand go from educating about concepts through simply what felt like course material to wrapping those same concepts and communicating them even more effectively, but through the power of storytelling and case studies.
Folks, next up, we're going to dig into podcasting as a trust engine. I got a lot more questions for Jon. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Is your business on autopilot yet? Do you have automation in place to capture, nurture, and convert prospects into clients via email, SMS, ringless voicemails, appointment setting? Get all the inbound and outbound marketing tools in one place. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com for more on automating your business so you can make money while you sleep.
You just heard from automationbooster.com. Folks, that's an add-on product that we built for Marketing Boost members. It's a complete CRM system. I've been an internet marketer since 1996. I've been before Facebook, Google, Yahoo. Let me tell you, I've never seen a product as robust as Automation Booster for the price. We built all of the inbound and outbound marketing tools you need, from email, your email builder, your funnel builder, your website builder, your SMS delivery, ringless voicemail delivery, and all the Marketing Boost funnel pages, over 100 templates built in with examples of these incentives being used to enhance your lead generation and ability to book more calls, close more deals. So if you don't have a full CRM system already, and even if you have one, you might want to look at switching to automationbooster.com. Check it out. All right, we're back here with Jon Goehring, and we're talking about building trust with your story. What is your story? How do you tell your story? And can you lead it where you are not the hero, but what was it again? Jon, help me with
The
that again.
guide. You
You're
want to
the
position yourself
guide,
as the
not the
guide.
hero.
Yeah.
It's not all about you. It's how do you tell your story where you can guide others to similar successes. So tell us about, and I want to get into your story as well after we talk a little bit about podcasting as the trust engine. Tell me about that. You call podcasting a trust building content creation engine. What do you mean by that?
Well, your podcast can become all of your content. This is something that I work with people who may not feel like they have time. They're sitting at a computer every morning and going, oh God, what do I post? I got to post something just to go through the motions of posting because that's what my marketing person told me, and I'm just supposed to post. That's all they know. They don't know what to post or how to post or what to do when they get stuck. When you create a podcast, there are so many benefits to this. And I'm sure you get this, Marco. You've been doing it for years with so much success. The benefit isn't just the monetization of the podcast, which is an opportunity that you have potentially down the road, and that's great. But it's also monetizing around the podcast and building trust with an audience through the power of repurposing your podcast. So you have your podcast. With your podcast, you can create some clips to post. You can create an email newsletter out of the concepts that were covered. You can collaborate, which I'm huge on collaboration, with a guest that you've had on and either guest on their podcast or create some sort of win-win joint situation where you're both communicating, guest posting on a blog or cross-referencing audiences. There's so much that you can do collaboratively, and it can become your whole content. You want to post 7 times a week? Release one podcast episode, and all of your content can be from and through that podcast episode, and schedule that out. And that way you build trust through the conversation of podcasting. That's what builds trust most effectively, is conversation, not just me to you. I'm just going to preach to you, but actually me talking with somebody else and your audience kind of listening in, getting to be the fly on the wall. That's why podcasting has exploded so much. And by doing that, you build a content creation engine that builds trust because you already have it created. You just need to repurpose it. No more banging your head on your keyboard trying to figure out what to post today.
You know, with I don't know how many millions of podcasters are out there and how many episodes are across the world with podcasting. How important is the size of the audience? You think, if when you get started, it's kind of overwhelming. You think, what am I going to talk about? Who am I going to interview? What will I do a solo podcast? Will I be, having guests on? What makes me a good interviewer? You've got a lot of doubts that come into your own mind. Why would anybody watch me versus, PDB or whatever? And so and myself included, especially early on, is building an audience. Is this really worthwhile? It takes, and yet, so again, let me ask you this: if I'm a small entrepreneur, whatever size company I am, and I'm asking myself, do I really need a podcast? How do you answer that question?
I would say that when it comes to your audience size, it's important depending on how you want the podcast to succeed. What is success to you? What's the purpose of it? If you want to monetize, you want about 30,000 downloads per month. It's a significant audience size. I will say that the majority of my clients do not monetize, and they do that by choice. Would monetizing be great? Sure, of course, but not everybody can build the audience that Marco does in Marketing Boost Solutions, right? There is still value in a podcast that doesn't monetize, and that is not by monetizing through the podcast, but by monetizing around it. So do you need a podcast? You don't need a podcast. There are certainly ways that you could create content for your brand without a podcast. I've just found it to be the most efficient way to do that because it creates content and builds trust through the power of conversation and collaborations with others who are on your podcast or cross promote it. I would say don't worry so much about the quantity of the audience, worry more about the quality of the audience. Your metrics shouldn't be as much about number of listeners or viewers. It should be more about how many times do I reach each of these listeners or viewers with my show, whether it be repurposed through a blog, whether it be on my email list. How many times do I reach these people and how engaged is the audience? I know some successful podcasters who have made money from their podcast indirectly, right? But they have an audience of about 100. Now, I would say try to grow that audience. Yes, absolutely. But I do ultimately believe in quality over quantity.
So tell us a bit about your story real quick here, or not necessarily quick, but what changed in your own business when you started podcasting with that collaborative growth oriented mindset?
Oh man, that was everything for me. All right, so there's a book by Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset, appropriately. And when I read that book, everything changed. So I was talking a little bit earlier about how when I was a voice actor, I was trying to be everything to everyone. And becoming a voice actor after leaving full-time radio was a scary decision for me because the radio industry was, starting to experience some changes as it continues to experience today. And I figured probably wasn't the most sustainable long-term career for me. I've also always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So with those things combined, I thought to myself, what a great time to go out on my own. And like many radio people, who went to a high-end radio or TV broadcasting school, we decide, well, what can we do now that we're on our own and not working full-time for somebody else? We're working for ourselves. How about voiceover? That's like the thing to do, right? Like, oh, I'm good with my voice, right? But then I realized that's only a very small portion of the voiceover business. And I think this is true for every business. Being good at what you do, at delivering a great product or service, is an essential part, but still a relatively small part of what you do as a business owner, right? That's so important to know that there are so many other skills that you need. So I learned this one the hard way by trying to be everything to everyone. I had this very competitive mindset. There's not enough work to go around. I got to steal everybody else's work so that I can make a living in this horrible dog eat dog world, right? And then finally, I had a mentor say to me, kind of be real with me finally, and say, Jon, you're an ice cream flavor. That's all you are. You could be vanilla, you could be chocolate, you could be cookies and cream, but you're a flavor. It's not about being better or worse or beating somebody else at their own game. It's about being the best version of your flavor that you can be. And as a voice artist, I took that and I said, you know what? I don't want to just be an ice cream flavor. I want to have an ice cream shop. So I collaborated with other flavors, so to speak, and built a voiceover and production business out of all of the flavors coming together to make a voiceover shop, so to speak. And that's how, it was really powerful for me. But it all started with the mindset change from this collaborative or from this competition mindset to one of collaboration. We can all win. And I believe that's true in any industry.
So, compared to me, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you can see that Jon is a very young man. And so you look like you just got out of college. So tell me, and I mean that as a compliment.
Thank
So,
you.
so tell me, StoryTrust Media, how long have you been in business doing that? And I want to hear some of your early on struggles and how you've overcome them, how you drove through the wall to begin seeing some successes, Jon.
Yeah. Well, 4 years in business now since when I was out of college. So I'm 26 now. So you and I are very close in age. And I know that there's a lot of people listening out there who feel like they're too young to get started. Well, you're not too young to get started. Now, when you're young, you will make some mistakes. But those mistakes are actually what propel you to success. You got to pay down what Alex Hormozy, is a big sales influencer, talks about, the ignorance tax, right? Like this idea of the more mistakes you make and the faster you make them, the more you pay off your ignorance tax. The more you realize that you learn what makes you successful. So early on, oh my goodness, I'm still paying down the tax. Let's be real here. We all are probably, but me especially, right? Making mistakes as far as how much should I follow up with people. That was a big thing early on. Big mistake. Let me follow up maybe every couple days. Hey, have you made a decision yet? Hey, do you want to work with me? Hey, you sure? What's taking you so long? All these messaging that was really off-putting. And I wondered at the time, why am I losing people? Why don't people want to? They seemed so interested. Now they don't want to work with me. Well, I certainly did not give them enough time. And what I've learned over the course of doing business for these past few years is that I'm following up in a nagging way. I'm not following up with value. And that was such an important lesson for me to learn. Like, hey, follow up with value. Reach out. Yes, follow up. That's so important. Don't just let this potential prospect just ride off, but follow up with value. Hey, I found this resource, thought you might think it's valuable. When they see that, they will likely either make a decision one way or another and remember, oh yeah, I owed you a response to that a potential partnership that we have here. So that was one of my huge early mistakes, was being a little bit too aggressive from a sales perspective and not leading with value first, but almost looking like I was begging for business, because let's face it, I was.
Well, that's a good story, and anybody out there listening can, I'm sure, could relate. Even me, I'm launching a new business recently, and targeting resorts throughout Mexico and the Caribbean, and trying to speak to the owners and decision makers, and you get them all interested, and then seems to die off. Like you got
Yeah.
to. How
Where'd they
often should
go?
I chase these guys? and
Yeah.
and I can see where even the podcast idea. If I had an interview, hey, I interviewed somebody you might find, and you're delivering another reason to get back to them versus
Right.
just, hey, how are you ready to do business or not? What are some of your top tips for launching a podcast the right way, even if someone's never touched a microphone before?
Well, starting is the most important thing, and that is the biggest mistake people make, is they don't start. It's the biggest mistake you can make. You think that you have to have all the right equipment in place. You think you gotta get everything in place, like the background images that you have, Marco. I mean, you're doing such great stuff with your podcast. But I can guess, correct me if I'm wrong, did it start off looking and sounding like it does today?
No, you're right. So it was terrible.
Well,
But
and it's made some progress over the years, certainly, but at the same time, you had to start.
right.
You had to start, and that's what people think, that they have to have everything. I think maybe people, they talk to me and they're like, "Whoa, what microphone do you have? Do I need to use that?" No, you don't need to use this. Yeah, I mean, you can if you want, but it's $500. Like, you don't need to have that kind of budget to start your podcast. You could just start and adapt as you go. Now, what you do need is the right mindsets. So this is what we're speaking about. A lot of people take so much time and energy to be investing in the right equipment, and, well, what platform should I syndicate to, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but that stuff can change. Your mindsets are what's more difficult to change. And with the exception of podcasts that just exist as personal passion projects, or, let's be honest, personal therapy. Some people love to just, hear the sound of their own voice, and that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But with podcasts that are actually looking to move the needle and make a difference, and be successful, you need to have that right mindset of, why am I doing this? This is the most important thing to start a podcast. Why are you doing it? Who are you trying to reach? Let's make it about them, not about you. Why would, you got to be brutally honest with yourself, why would someone want to listen to this or watch this? What's in it for them? When you have those mindsets, and you might not have all those answers, but you have the mindset of seeking those answers and continually refining until you get those answers, that's what's going to make your podcast successful, not necessarily all those more surface level things.
And what do you recommend people do about finding, if they're going to be doing interviews, finding guests to that are, powerful, people to be on their show?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's so important. Networking is such an important piece of this, right? And realizing that asking for somebody to be a guest on your show is actually providing some value to them too. I mean, it's a win-win, right? They're providing you some value. You're also providing them some value by by loaning your audience to them for a specific amount of time. So, with that in mind, be confident. You don't have to beg for guests, right? Because you think that they're only doing you a favor and you're doing them no favors. It's a win-win situation. You feel free to be confident and offer it as a value add. I would say if you're in business, start with some of your past clients. That's a great way to start because there is some obviously hopefully happy clients, right? There is some built-in reputation right there by, hey, here's somebody that I've worked with. Let's talk about this particular thing that you do. Obviously, you want to make sure your guests are relevant in the industry or the niche that you're in. So you can always go to something like Podmatch or FM Matchmaker or one of those services. But I would start even more with people that you know, even just post on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm starting up this new podcast in this particular area. Does anybody know any good guests that you could introduce me to? Boom. Now you're growing your network and getting hopefully some valuable conversations with those people.
Interesting ideas. Thanks. Um, what about, I mean, when I started this, a little bit on my story, I decided before I launched my own podcast to get some practice by reaching out and getting interviewed on other people's shows. Have you seen people do that? And what does that do for them? I can tell you what it did for me, but let me hear what you think.
Yeah, sure. And then I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it too. I think that's such a valuable exercise. Now, you have to eventually, it's great to own your own media, right? So you having your own platform is such a powerful thing. So I always say to people who want to be successful in podcasting, well, you should have your own podcast eventually, but in the meantime, to practice, like you said, or to supplement your own show, those podcast guest appearances are so huge. That's value. Like I said, that's value to you. You're getting to use somebody else's audience and hopefully providing a valuable service or information to them, but in exchange, getting a little bit more exposure and name recognition. So all of that is so important. Then, like you said, the practice of it. Oh man, that's why you can start small. Start with people who are just starting up podcasts. And I don't mean to be mean, but they're not going to have the audiences that other people are going to have. So that's what I did starting off. I'm like, let me try and guest on 25 podcasts that aren't that big, that there's, low risk, right? If I screw up or sound terrible, not the end of the world. This isn't going to be heard by a ton of people, most likely, right? And that's how I started. I really think that's a valuable thing, which is a challenge. It's work trying to get on other people's podcasts, but it can really pay off. How about you, Marco? What was your experience like?
Well, I went right out of the gate with, and now I'm trying to remember this guy's show, uh, Fire Nation, um, uh, Fire Nation podcast with, anyway, huge audience. And I went and said, let me get interviewed on their show. And of course, they have a fee to be interviewed. And I'm like, the hell with it. Let's pay it. Let's get some audience.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
was nervous as you all get out, but I got through it and, saw some immediate traction and a lot of people commenting about it. And uh, we went on from there. I went on to do about, I don't know, 50 different interviews on different shows before I said, okay, let me launch my own show as well. And then as I did that, I did 150 interviews in my first year on a third party websites, which, if you Google Captain Marco or Google Marketing Boost podcast, whatever, you'll see me interviewed on, and that's part of the benefit. When people search your name or brand, you're going to end up showing up in SEO searches on all these, YouTube or Spotify podcasts, etc., as you as the guest on other people's shows, which starts to give you credibility and make you the expert in your field. And so Yeah, it worked. I started to see being on third parties was a huge value with very little, other than time. There was, in most cases, no cost to be interviewed on other people's shows. If they're super high volume shows, you might want to consider paying for it, but practice
Yep.
practice on the low on the freebies first and get your story nice and clear. And so anyway, then I launched my own show, and then everybody I interviewed, it was like, hey, what about a reciprocal opportunity? Is there an interest in having me on your show? And back and forth. So yeah, collaboration, and every guest is a possible client as well, for
True.
depending upon what your product or service is all about. You get into a 45-minute conversation with somebody, there's opportunity for them to say, you know what, maybe we should consider working together, and so on. So another way to monetize the show. So tell me about your services again. Let me pull up and share your link. You've got an offer here. Tell me about your lead magnet, so to speak. Let me share my screen and let people know this is going to be in the show notes below, so you can go there when we're done. But tell us what we get here on your lead magnet page, where you get a 5-part podcast series. Tell us
Yeah,
what's this
well,
about.
yeah, thanks for sharing this. And I did put together this private podcast series about telling your story and building your trust through storytelling. It goes a little bit deeper than we've talked about today here, about some of the ways that you can incorporate stories into your content creation structure, whether that be through podcasting. I focus especially on podcasting because that's what I help my clients do, is start podcasts, whether it be private or public podcast feeds. And so this 5-part podcast series, totally free to sign up for. Just send me your email and it's going to come your way. And then also, if you'd like to take advantage of a free consultation, which includes a totally free content audit, what you have, and a podcast outline, and a 30-minute conversation about how you can start your own podcast to help you build trust with your audience, then that's also something that is offered through this. So yeah, you see it on the screen right now. That's hopefully a valuable offering for you.
Cool. Again, it's in the show notes below, the link to get there. Don't miss that. I'm also looking at, can you see your the LinkedIn page for you?
Yes. Yes.
Good. So you can look up Jon here on LinkedIn, Jon Goehring, and follow him here, reach out to him here, and learn more about how you can improve your story and your getting him on podcasts, audiobooks. Tell us about audiobooks.
Sure.
What's the model behind doing that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've completed over 25 audiobooks now, and most of them were narrated by me. I've also helped others produce their own audiobooks, and I found that to be a really valuable offering for authors who want to, because the audiobook industry is exploding, who want to step up the reach of their book and reach different audiences that may not want to have a hardcover in their hands, or they're very busy professionals. I know I personally listen to a lot of audiobooks, so that's just another way to build your reputation. Also, the voice, having somebody actually in your ear telling their story, or somebody that you've hired to tell your story for you, that's such a powerful trust building tool, which is so important. So that's why, yeah, I help authors turn their books into audiobooks, and that's one of the more exciting things I get to do.
Tell me how long should an audiobook be to, minimum pretty much to be a success?
Yeah, I would say, you want if your book, you're writing a legitimate book that's telling a powerful story, you're going to want it to be about 3 hours long or longer, because you want to get people listening not just once, not just binging your content, but having to actually come back to it a few times and let it kind of marinate in between. And some of the best books are, between 50 and 100,000 words. Some of the classics, certainly there's no rule of how long your book needs to be, but some of the most impactful books are in that probably 4 to 6 hour range when it comes to their audio.
So you talk about trust a little while ago with the podcast and your story. So that leads me into one of my newest products. We're launching very, very soon, guys. Stay tuned for this. I've talked about it on a lot of the recent podcasts we're finally about ready to launch, called trustbyreviews.com. Trustbyreviews.com. Now, what is this exactly? We help you as a business owner solicit a constant flow of new reviews and testimonials and honest feedback from your customers. The best part about it is we help you turn every single one of those happy customers who give you a 3, 4, or 5-star review. We make it easy and we help you encourage them to post their honest opinion on multiple third-party websites from the same interface. So they can publish their review quickly on Google Reviews, on Trustpilot, on SiteJabber, on Shopper Approved, on Yelp, etc. And so one happy client could end up posting on 5 different third-party review sites, forcing Google and other search engines to do what? Lift your brand anytime somebody is searching for you. And we do that by the platform, Trust by Reviews. It kind of ties in Marketing Boost. We're going to help you offer incentives and rewards for people to go that extra mile of posting their honest opinion about you on multiple third-party review sites, or giving you a video review versus a written review. We're also going to, if you get a negative review, we're the only one in the industry to date that I've seen that's going to give you a 72-hour mediation window to fix the problem before that negative post goes live. So if somebody has something negative to say about your product or service, we want to give you a chance to fix it. And you'll have a 72-hour private window to work it out with that client. If they don't respond, we're going to consider that may very well be a fake review from a competitor trying to hurt you. If they don't respond to your back and forth or attempt to solve the problem, that review never gets published. And if it does get published, it's only published on Trust by Reviews. We're not encouraging the negative review to pump it out on all the third-party reviews. So we help you manage your online reputation, solicit a constant flow of new reviews, and get every happy review into 3, 4, or 5 posts on multiple third-party review sites. So stay tuned and go check out trustbyreviews.com. By the time this show goes live, it may be live. Trustbyreviews.com. We're back here with Jon. Jon, sorry for that interruption on our show, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about that as well.
Yeah.
So wrapping it up here a little bit about it, for listeners who want to start their own show or use storytelling to grow their brand, where do they begin? Obviously, searching out with you is a very good step. But what would you suggest? Where do they research? How big is the commitment? How financially for someone to consider starting a show done right?
Well, if you want to do a show done right, early on, or at least those first key steps, I do have a podcast starter product, which is just $600, and it's a way for you to get your podcast off the ground. We produce a couple of episodes, sort of like I hold your hand, and then you take it from there, kind of thing, where I equip you with the tools to start the podcast. If you want to offload all the content production, then I have 3 monthly tiers as well that I work through. You can learn more at StoryTrust.media, StoryTrust.media. And then I highly encourage you as well, if you're looking at starting a podcast, check out Marketing Boost too, because some of the solutions that you guys provide are great, because it's such a crowded digital marketplace out there right now. And that's the challenge. You do need a little bit of a boost, right? And that's what you guys do. I think podcasting can be that boost, which is why I encourage people to reach out, download those 5 free episodes that I got for you, and then take advantage of that totally free, no commitment consultation that you have with me to see how podcasting might help your brand. And then check out Marco's stuff and Marketing Boost Solutions too, and see if there's some synergy there, because there's a lot that you can gain from both of us, I believe.
I appreciate that plug. Thank you. Jon, one other thing, when we talked about your story and going from, radio at a very young age to launching podcasts and training others, how did you finance your, again, what I'm trying to do here is encourage the wannabe entrepreneurs, the people out there thinking about it. As a very young man, you decided, you know what, I'm going for it. Did you keep a job and launch the business? Did you just go jump both feet in and go for it? Did you have a spouse or someone to help you, pay the bills while you got the thing off the ground? Launching and being an entrepreneur is not easy, and taking that step, that of faith into nowhere, into what sometimes feels like nowhere land. I got no idea what the next step's going to be, or how, if there's even going to be a step there when I reach out with the next pace. Tell me again, how did you do it, and what were your initial struggles?
Yeah, well, early on it was tough. Certainly financially, you don't know because you're abandoning that everyday stable job. And I was fortunate where I did keep a job while I was building this. I even started building this out in college, and I did a lot of voiceover work in college. So while I was in college, still kind of protected by my parents, so to speak, to a certain degree. I guess I was fortunate in that regard. I was able to start this up and get some momentum. Then I did keep a job as well. I do some contracting for radio stations now that I did work for full time, like I said, and then also part time after leaving. So I've been fortunate enough to have that financial security, at least a security blanket, not a full time income, but enough to just help you get your business off and running. But I do encourage people to not give yourself too much of a security blanket, and that's one thing that I think helped me a lot, is that I didn't have much of a security blanket. So I almost had to figure it out, or else. It's like, do you want to go back working full time, or are you going to figure this out? And that little push in the butt kept me going. And so I do encourage people, obviously, it's important to have that security blanket, know what's important. First things first, your well-being is the most important thing. You have to finance yourself and make sure that you're living a healthy, fairly as comfortable as possible lifestyle, but don't give yourself too much of a blanket, or else you might not be motivated to follow through and to do everything, all that hard work it takes as an entrepreneur.
There's no doubt. That's kind of why I asked. I wanted to hear the background, the story. There's no doubt that obviously burning your bridges behind you has value, right?
Yeah.
Once you've burned the bridges, once you lit the ships on fire and you made it to shore, there's no going back. So then, therefore, now you have all the fire to get something done. But that can be very dangerous, because if you a couple of wrong moves and you're desolate. So
Absolutely.
having a backup, having a job. I mean, early on in my career, I definitely had a job and a business, and had to be willing to burn the candle at both ends, get home from the job, and then jump on the business and work
Yep.
until the wee hours of the morning, and get some sleep, back to the job tomorrow, and then come home, and uh, it reminds me of a lot of women in the real estate. A lot of women are in the real estate industry more than men, because very often it's their spouse is carrying the basic nuts and bolts of the household, while mom goes out and starts to build a real estate business, which takes sometimes months, if not years, to start being really seeing the successes. So to be an entrepreneur, yeah, look for that blanket. Try, if you have some comfort, great. If you have a spouse willing to support you, great. This is how you can have a side hustle and turn
Yep.
that side hustle into a bigger and bigger business, which is, John, kind of sounds like that's what you had early on, right? You're in college, and your side hustle was the voiceovers and what have you, and you're blessed with a beautiful voice, by the way. I was going to ask you, is that the microphone then, the settings that you do that make it sound so rich and beautiful, or?
That certainly helps. Yeah, I don't think my voice in real life sounds as good. People talk to me, people see me, and they're like, "Oh, I heard your podcast." Wait, what? You don't sound as good in real life. I'm like, "Oh, well, thank you, I guess." I think it's a backhanded insult, kind of, but it's true. The microphone and the quality of your equipment certainly helps.
So yeah, I may need an audit for that alone, just to improve my voice here a little bit.
Well, you sound good too, and I do want to say, just really resonate with something you said, Marco, about burning the candle at both ends and being able to come home from your job and dive into your business. People say, "Well, I don't want to do that," and it doesn't have to be a permanent solution. That's the whole point of building a business. The point I always make is, if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not going to be easy. You have to be willing to embrace that work. And I guess, easy for you to say, John, right? You had a nice little security safety blanket there. Maybe, but if it was easy, everybody would do it. Embrace.
What little security blanket that you were young enough to still live with mom and dad? Everybody starts there.
Yep.
We're all started living with mom and dad at some point, and that's the perfect opportunity to start your side hustle, get your jobs, continue with a side hustle. Before you know it, you don't need a job, and now you're employing others eventually, and you're literally creating your own success and defining your own future. So that's the lifestyle that entrepreneurship can bring when you have a little bit of hard work and a little bit of luck in the mix. You need
Yeah.
both.
Don't be afraid of that hard work, man. It's don't be afraid of it. Buckle down for a couple years. You'll be glad you did. I'm telling you. And you fall in love with what you do, and then you don't want to stop working. That's
Right.
where I'm at right now. So I'm definitely very fortunate.
Well, the harder you work, the more luck falls in your lap. So
True.
it's a matter of being, as you prepare yourself, you find luck opportunities. You just uncover them where nobody else even sees them.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
matter of fact, I'll tell a quick story. That's how Marketing Boost was born, guys. It
No.
was an opportunity we had no idea. Let me quickly give you the background here just before we wrap up this show. We were in the travel space. We had a very successful travel business selling beautiful hotels and resorts around the world, and we wanted video testimonials. We couldn't get any. We're like, man, if we could, we knew we only had hundreds of video testimonials from all these beautiful hotels and resorts. We could leverage that into thousands of more, bookings. But it was like we'd get a trickle of or a video review here and there. We came up with an idea to offer a reward, a perk, an incentive. We said, you know what? While they're on vacation, we're going to send them a survey and ask them, how's the hotel living up to your expectations? Can you tell us a 1 to 5? What do you think of the hotel and our service so far? If they gave us a 1 or 2, that was great feedback for we could jump on it and try to fix whatever the problem might have been. If they gave us a 3, 4, or 5, especially the 4s and 5s, we were saying, hey, would you be willing to share that with the rest of the world and maybe go the extra mile and film a selfie testimonial from the beach, the resort, the pool, the bar, and brag about the hotel brand and ours? If you do that, we'll give you 3 nights in your choice of Orlando or Las Vegas as a bonus. Well, guess what? Hundreds of these video testimonials started coming in. And so much so that we had to shut it off because we were scared. This is going to be expensive to fulfill these hotel rooms we're giving away. Then we thought, what could we do to keep this going? We went back to our hotel partners and said, hey, we can help you fill these rooms. Let's be honest, your hotel's never full year round. You've got empty rooms and you still have the same fixed mortgage fee, rent, lights, bill, front desk staff, etc. We can help you put some warm bodies in those rooms, in the unsold rooms, and they're going to likely spend money at the restaurant, bar, casino, gift shop, excursion desk, etc. And so we got a few to agree. Then we could turn that campaign back on. Well, before we knew it, that website today has over 30,000 video testimonials, more than any other travel website in the world. And that eventually is what became marketingboost.com. We went from having a few hotels in Orlando and Las Vegas participating to hundreds of resorts around and hotels around the world in 180 destinations. And we turned it into a brand new business to be able to supply these incentives to other businesses like yours. So that's what I meant by when you're working hard, you uncover, you pick up rocks and find new opportunities, and a little luck might sprinkle in your lap.
Yeah.
So work
Yeah.
hard, look for opportunities, and they come your way. Folks, thank you so much for attending our show today. We really appreciate your time that you've invested to listen to us. If you like the content we brought, please do me a huge favor and comment in the comments below. Tell us what you thought. Give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and grab this link and share it with another entrepreneur, especially one that might be considering a podcast. So, folks, thank you so much. John, do you have any final words of wisdom?
I just want to thank you, Marco, and the audience. Keep telling your story. It builds trust, and appreciate the time you spent here with us today.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you on the next episode of the Marketing Boost Solutions podcast. Thank you. Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Boost Solutions podcast with your hosts, Captain Marco Torres. Now it's on you. Take the next step now. Go to marketingboostsolutions.com for more on how you can wow, delight, and surprise your clients with the most amazing draw card on the planet. So stay thirsty, my friends. Stay thirsty for knowledge. See you next time.